the meeting to order. If you would, call the roll, please.
Mr. Long, Mr. Matheson,
Here.
Mr. Payne,
Here.
Ms. Reese, Mr. Carlton.
Here. We've got two members who are out of town, Miss Reese, and Mr. Long. So it'll just be the three of us today. Let's stand and have a moment of silence, and then we'll have the pledge. And I'm going to ask Dr. Simcox, if she would, to lead us in the pledge. Dr. Simcox.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, the first item on our agenda, Dr. Simcox is going to have a special recognition of a special person with the school district.
And I'm going to ask Ms. Norton to come up and join me, and Mr. Henley, if they don't mind. Ms. Norton is the special ed supervisor, and Mr. Henley is the principal of the high school, and they got to work very closely with Ms. Martine. So before we have her family come up, we just want to say a few words about Ms. Martine. Ms. Hope joined Johnson County Schools in November of 1988. She had a love for children and often worked in our before and after school child care program. She was always a committed and dedicated worker for the Johnson County Youth League basket program, taking up ticket money at Run Creek Elementary anytime there was a Youth League basketball game. Ms. Hope would cheer for all of the players and loved the sport of basketball. In the 32 years Ms. Hope worked for us, she made a lasting impact on our staff and students she worked with daily. We are grateful for her selfless service to our students and community, and she is greatly missed. So we just want to take this time to honor her family. So Mr. Hope, if you and your children would like to come up and receive this plaque. Mr. Henley, do you want to say anything?
Well, just going off what Dr. Simcox said, anybody that's known Martine knows that she was in this for the kids, and she had an impact on a lot of students in Johnson County, including myself, and some of these folks that have worked for the school system. We appreciate her service. We appreciate you all.
She had an impact on all of us, the students and the staff. I worked with her for 15 years, and Martine was someone you could always go to when you needed something done, and she would do it.
She is greatly missed. We appreciate her dedication and your all. Mr. Carlton, did you want to say anything?
Yeah, I'd just like to express what I mentioned to all the family here just a few minutes ago, is that, my kids grew up in this system, and all the way from the time that they were, the kindergarten basketball at the games and with Miss Martine, at all the different things that she did through the school system. She made a world of impact on them. And, all of our contact with Miss Martine was always so positive, and she was such a great person to have. She's going to be deeply missed, and I know that's, a big honor to the family as far as her legacy. Mike, you or Gary?
I'm just sorry for your loss. I mean, from what I heard, I didn't know her, but from what I've heard, she was a great person, and she was really good with kids.
She was wonderful, and I know she raised two. I don't know the middle daughter, but I know
I'm the oldest.
I know,
She's the oldest.
Oh, the oldest. Well, I meant the middle and the middle here. But I know of her other kids. Don and Dale, did a lot for the kids in the school system, and I think that's a reflection on her too.
Yes, and just on behalf of not only the school system but Youth League, she was always at every game, and she always had a child she's babysitting with her. So, and she got into those games, and she would do anything that we asked her to do. She is going to be greatly missed. So, we would like to present a plaque in her honor for you all, and then I know they're going to hang one up at the high school in the cafeteria as well in her honor. Thank you all.
We'll take just a few minutes. If you all want to stay, you're welcome, but if If you want to leave, you're welcome also. All right, the next item is the consent agenda. Is there anything on the consent agenda that anyone wants to pull off?
Make a motion, we approve the consent agenda.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second
And we have a second by Mr. Matheson. Any discussion? Call the roll, please.
Mr. Matheson,
it. Yes.
Mr. Payne,
Yes.
Mr. Carlton.
Yes. Next item, we don't have our student board member Laura Patterson here, but I think Dr. Simcox has got her report.
Yes, she does apologize. She had to go in and work this evening. So I'm going to read her report to you. Hello and happy holidays. Just a reminder, though students begin Christmas break after December 18th, the first semester of school is not over yet, as we will continue this semester during the first half of January. The theater department was fortunate to record their live radio play of It's a Wonderful Life at WMCT this week. To tune in, it will be playing on December the 22nd at 7 o'clock and December 25th at 9 o'clock a.m. The National Honor Society will be assisting in Santa's Helping Hands for Christmas, and the members will need to assist loading and delivering the presents tomorrow, December the 10th. I guess that would have been today. Our robotics teams will be competing this Saturday in Bristol in a state qualifying competition. Please be sure to share your support. Student council officers have also decorated a light pole on Main Street. Be sure to drive by and see it. If any students have pictures they want in the yearbook, please email yearbook@jocoed.net. Thank you and happy holidays.
Okay, thank you. All right, with the board's permission, since we have two board members who aren't here today, I'm going to move the maintenance vehicle versus personal vehicles to the January meeting when we can all discuss it and we can share with everybody. We're going to make a decision. We need everybody to talk about it and hear the information. Is that all right, Mr. Masson?
What does the other two have to be here?
Well, do you not think that, I mean, we tabled it to wait for you, and I think that if two board members aren't here, something this important, they need to be participating in it as well.
Kevin, he had asked for some information at cost, and with him not being here, I think we just need to wait until January for discussion. If that's okay.
Well, I'd like to express one thing to the chairman from the last meeting. He was talking about the salaries of the maintenance workers here at the school system versus those down at the prison.
Mm-hmm.
And it seems like these guys here make considerably more money.
Well, we'll bring this up next week. I'm not sure that that's correct, but if
Well,
it
I know
is,
it's correct. I've done some research.
if it is, then that's fine. But I think we need to make our decision based on our guys and not comparing them to everybody else. All right, we're going to move this to the January meeting. Next item is to approve making April the 1st, 2021 a half-day instructional.
Yes, if you remember at Thanksgiving break, we were going to have a half day the Wednesday before Thanksgiving. Due to the fact we had so many staff out and could not fill those positions, we ended up going virtually that week, which was Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. Instead of taking the half day away from our employees, I would like to move it to April the 1st. That is the Thursday before Easter break. The state allows us 3 half days. So I wouldn't want our employees to miss out on that half day. So we ended up making the Wednesday before Thanksgiving a full day. So I'm requesting to make the Thursday before Easter a half day.
Okay. Do we have a motion on this item?
Yeah, I make a motion, we make April 1st a half instructional day.
All right, have a motion. We have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, we have a second. Any discussion? All right, would you call the roll?
Mr. Matheson,
Yes.
Mr. Payne,
Yes.
Mr. Carlton.
Yes. All right, the next item is to approve virtual learning criteria. This is attachment 8.
Yes, with this, Ms. Miller and Ms. Lang have been working very closely with our virtual students, and you will see a PowerPoint we're getting ready to share on that information. But one of the things our attorney, Mr. McCarty, has suggested to all school boards is that they approve a plan for students who are going to be continuing virtual learning. You know, this is all new to everyone across the state, so we're learning things as we go. But this criteria, which would remain in place for the second semester, just some highlights from it is those that are currently using the virtual program, first of all, they have to be passing. You know, they have to have internet connection. There's some course offerings that may not be available for the virtual learning. If they just choose to return to in-person instruction, they do have to sign a paper, and with that paper, when they're signing that, they're saying, I know my child's coming back to school and that I will not send them back to virtual, because we don't want kids flip-flopping back and forth, because it's just very hard on the student, it's very hard on the staff to do that. So by signing that paper that Chris McCarty actually drew up for us, that's saying if you come back in person and you sign this paper, your child has to remain in person. So this is just some criteria for our students to be able to continue on virtual learning. They have to have access to the internet. They have to be passing academic subjects. You're going to see in a minute we're having an issue with that. We have a lot of our students on virtual learning that are not passing, and you know, they're in, I guess, danger of failing, being remediated, retention, that kind of thing. So this is just guidelines and criteria that if you have to meet to be able to stay in person or go in person.
While we're talking about virtual learning, I want to inform Mr. Long and you about the lines are in the library at the old Shady School.
Mr. McQueen told us they would be.
So
Yes.
if anyone in the Shady community wants to send their kids for virtual learning, there's 3 retired instructors over there that's willing to help with those kids.
Okay, thank you.
Now, if they sign that they're coming back in person, then I assume if they're having to go in quarantine or something, then they go virtual.
Yes, if they have to go on quarantine, of course, but they
Okay.
can't just say, I want to go back to virtual because I'm failing my courses here, so I want to go home. We're not going to allow that because that's just educational neglect.
Okay.
Okay, I have, you all have the PowerPoint presentation in front of you that we will be presenting this evening of virtual learning update to students in our school system. As of 3 o'clock today, we have 388 students total in the system, K through 12, that are virtual. And I have broken this down between each school. We'll start with elementary. We have 126 total as of today. Our largest number is 4th grade at 26. Our smallest number is 3rd grade at 10. That number for 3rd grade has stayed pretty consistent. You know, it's been between 9 and I think 13 or 14 at one time. And at one time we had 30 students virtual in 5th grade. So that number has decreased significantly. At Doe Elementary we have 27 students, and you can see the breakdown there, kindergarten through 6th. And we have 4 students who are failing in that at Doe, and that's 14.8% as of the midterm that went out November 30th. Laurel, we have 11, and that number has stayed very consistent, as well as Doe. Doe and Laurel have stayed pretty much the same. Our other 2 elementaries, it's been different as we've gone through. With virtual at Laurel, we have 2 students that are failing, which is 18%. Mountain City Elementary, we have 54 students on virtual learning, and we have 21.2%, that's 11 students that were failing as of the midterm. Run Creek Elementary, we have 34 as of today, and we have 26.5, which is 9 students that are failing as of the midterm. The middle school, we have 64 students in virtual learning, 27 in 7th grade, 37 in 8th grade. And of the students total, 42 are failing, that's 65.6%. 7th grade, 70% of them are failing, and 8th grade, 62.2% are failing. The high school, as of today, we have 198 virtual students. You can see the grades. The highest is 10th grade, and that has been very consistent as we've gone along. And we have the lowest number in 9th grade, which has been pretty much the same since we started. Virtual students failing at the high school, we have 124. And you can see the percentages there. The highest is are our seniors, as 75% of the virtual students are failing.
Doesn't this pretty much correlate with what's going on across the nation?
It does.
It does.
Yeah.
It does.
It does, from the reports that I've read. It does. Our highest recorded virtual numbers, we had, the week of 10/30, we had 155 elementary. Middle school, we had 81. That was a one-day high. It went back down after that day. And also at the high school, they're hovering around 200 and have for quite a while, but they hit 200 on 11/20, but we haven't gone over 200.
Now, that's not on CTE students, is it? That's just
It's-
academic.
This
It's
is all
acad-
students.
Yeah, all students.
Okay.
Yeah. And then a comparison for you, we started September 17th tracking this data. And at elementary, we had 149. Now we have 126. Middle school, we had 54. Now we have 64. And at the high school, we had 144 the day we started with this. And now we have 198 on virtual. You have any questions for me that I can answer?
How many total students are at the high school now?
We have about 600 and,
25,
yeah,
about 625.
625. Does it include virtual?
yes, that's
Yes.
all that's enrolled.
And you might want to know that the letters that were sent out to the high school students and their parents for the failing letters, we just put the courses on there that were the academic courses that they needed to graduate. So we really want them to focus on the requirements for graduation.
What kind of response have you got?
I had not as many phone calls as I thought I would have, but we have had some parents reach out to us and tell us that they have talked to the teachers, and the teacher said that information was not correct. However, we took the information directly from Skyward, which is where all the grades go in. And just for instance, I had a mother call me and tell me that. And so I just told her, let's reach out to the teacher, because in the letter it says you need to reach out to the teacher first, just like if there's a discrepancy. If they were not, if the teacher did not get back with them within 24 hours of when they reached out, they were to call the principal. But what I am doing, and Miss Lang is doing the same thing, is, and you guys are going to have to forgive me because I cannot breathe and talk this thing. I just told her that I would reach out to the teachers and have the teachers reach out to the parent. This one parent in particular she called back and she said, I just want to thank you and thank the teachers for reaching out to me. Those teachers reached out to her within an hour, and they realized what was going on with the children and with submitting and everything. So I've not had any be really, really nasty. Some upset and don't understand, and we try to explain. But we're reaching out to the teachers, and they are reaching out to the teachers, and
I think
from
because
there.
most parents would understand that you're not trying to do something punitive. You're trying to make sure that their
Right.
child achieves and can go on to the next grade or graduate.
Right.
And you know, some students are successful in virtual, but some are not. And you know, we just want to help those that are not be successful and not get so far behind that when they do come back in person, they can't get called back up.
The thing that concerns me about the virtual is a lot of kids and reports across the TV says that they're getting depressed because they're not having interactions with their peers or with their teachers.
You definitely need that social interaction.
Yeah. And I think this past weekend or something, there was a kid who was around Wisconsin or somewhere committed suicide. He played football. He had high scores in his academic classes. And he just got so depressed that he committed suicide. And they say it's beginning to run rampant now.
Well, I think on that note, and the parents that are listening now, the parents need to know that our counselors are still available to their students. Just because their children are virtual does not mean that the counselors are not available. So the counselors are available. And I have actually had talked to some counselors myself and said, will you please reach out to this child? So those parents need to call, and they can set up a Zoom call or whatever they want to, but the counselors are available. But that's a really good point.
Are these teachers monitoring the kids, like if they're in a depressed state or anything that's changed on them since?
I don't think they would be able to monitor if they're in a depressed state. I think that would be more on the parents, because the parents are with them. Now, some of these students that we're talking about are still doing extracurricular activities. So they're coming in and seeing coaches and teachers in the afternoon. Some of them are actually coming in for tutoring in the afternoon. They feel better with the lower number of students there. So if the teachers or the coaches can see them one-on-one or, in a small group, then of course they can monitor that. But I think that's falling on the parents, since they're at home with the parents.
Now, I know on the elementary, when it was all virtual, the counselors gave the elementary kids something every day to do. Is that the same with the high school? Does the high school have some kind of?
I'm not sure about that.
No.
No.
Middle and high school counselors don't have they don't
do
teach the
the
classes
academic
like they
thing.
do at elementary.
Right. The elementary counselors go into the classrooms and teach classes,
Okay.
just like a specialty teacher.
Any more questions?
Out of the, if I'm guessing 12th graders, we're looking at around 30 that are failing, right?
I
Somewhere
think
around
that's
there.
what it
Somewhere
said.
around there.
How many, are any of those at the point now where they're just not going to be able to graduate, or can they all?
I'm going to kind of ask Mr. Long to help me here, because he's more of the high school person than I am. But I think they can do credit recovery. I'm just going to ask him to speak on that.
If it was frozen today and it had to be determined, do they graduate now or not, then no, they would not, because those that we have written down are failing a graduation requirement course. At the high school, though, we have numerous measures in place, namely credit recovery, or if the grade was too low that credit recovery isn't an option, then they retake that course in the spring semester. So no, it is not a foregone conclusion that they can't graduate. In fact, we're making every effort, or that letter being one of them, to make sure that that does not happen. One other thing I was going to say, we do have credit recovery built into the second semester for that purpose. So they should be able to still be okay. Oh, I know what I was going to say. They're required 28 credits to graduate. They take 36 credits while they're in school. So failing a course in and of itself doesn't stop you from graduating. Failing a required course, senior English, economics, something like that, that's where credit recovery or retaking the course comes in. So no, it is not an automatic that they won't graduate. We'll make every effort to ensure that they do.
It's time for them these 30 especially, grow up and act like an adult.
Well,
Yeah.
one of the things that the letter said is virtual hasn't worked for you in the first semester, so you probably need to come back in person.
Well, and really, your numbers haven't alarmed anybody as far as spread in the schools. And I mean, now we're seeing people recognize that nationwide, and the medical experts come out and say kids need to be in school, and the schools are probably safer than other places. I mean, our numbers have not been what we feared when we first went back to school. So if a child's failing, the most important thing is to try to get them to the point of where they're going to pass and where they're going to graduate. So hopefully parents will take a little bit of solace in that, and maybe some of them who were concerned at first will send their kids back to school. You all have done a good job, though, as far as working through this and making sure that things are available.
Well, and I would just like to thank the teachers publicly for getting back with these parents so quickly.
That's great.
It meant a lot for that parent to call me back and say, I really appreciate the response so quickly. And, that meant a lot to her. So I would just like to thank the teachers because they have busy days.
Well, and I think our administrators and our teachers all need to,
Yes.
be congratulated, because teachers having to do the virtual portion and then the classroom portion and everything else they've got going on, and reaching out, and your counselors and providing that to them, I think that's a big benefit.
Ms. Edna, on these kids that's in the lower grades, that's maybe failing some, now what recourse are we gonna have here with them?
Well, some schools that offer leaps, and Angie, please help me if I'm wrong on this. Some schools that offer leaps, some of the parents, even in the lower elementary, upper or lower, are taking advantage of that because, again, they feel more comfortable with their child in a lower number setting. Some of them are reaching out to the teachers. I know we have a teacher who she's stationed at Doe. She has really went above and beyond to help these students that are struggling, just way above.
And the teachers are reaching out. Some of them, they have set up meetings every week with the students at a certain time. They also have Google Meets, and they actually will see the kids. Not all of them show up, but some more than others. And I know that's really helped a lot, the teachers reaching out that way. And they also have set up the individual Google Meets with the kids if they request it, or if the parent requests it for extra help.
Okay, if we go on now, and Dr. Simcox has went through a lot of this. Some of this came directly from the first return to school action plan that we had. Again, if the kids are already on virtual, they haven't received the letter, they're doing great, they don't need to take any further action at this time. We have a lot of parents, not a lot, I shouldn't say that, we've had a couple of parents to call, and yes, we are providing paper and pencil work for those who have such a bad connection to the internet, but it is not all paper pencil. So we just want to let the parents know it is not everything is paper pencil. We just want to put that out there, but we are helping families in circumstances that we have to have some of that. Again, I know some of the AP and honors courses are not available in virtual learning, and these kids have to follow a very rigorous it's a very rigorous course. The teachers are not letting up on them just because it's virtual and trying to be soft or anything. They have to do everything that the kids are doing in the classroom. And they are taking grades. Again, we all know they're receiving instruction from certain teachers, and they're following the same pacing guides. Students that are returning to in-person learning have to complete a form, and they have to come through Jesse and I. One of us have to sign the form. We go over the form with them, and again, this came from Mr. Chris McCarty. We just let them know that as a parent, they cannot jerk their child back out of school again to go virtual just because they want to. The only way they can go virtual is if the school system goes full virtual or if they are put on quarantine. That they do have to wear a mask while they are at school, and that they have to follow the school board policy for truants or for attendance. Then we put a date on there that they're to return to schools. Right now, they can return to the elementary schools, but we're calling the high school on every child that we want to come back at this point and saying, what do the numbers look like in the classroom? I've had several conversations with Mr. Henley, and he's been great to work with us, and I think he put a student in yesterday that wanted to come back, that was failing, and he wanted to come back early. We talked, students cannot return to school to in-person learning after the third 9 weeks has ended. unless it's required by the school system or by the court system, the juvenile court system. We just feel that there's no need for them to return at that point. They're still going to receive instruction just like they see instruction always until the very last day of school. But it's just going to be too hard at that point for them to return to the classroom.
And that's when most of our assessments will take place, if the state continues with the assessments.
This is criteria for virtual placement in the second semester. We put on there that families must have access to internet. And it is virtual, therefore they do need to have access. We have actually had some parents contact us wanting to know if we would pay to have internet hooked up to their house or brought to their community. And unfortunately, I told them we just can't do that. So that's one reason we put that in there. All students do have to be passing all academic courses, which is a 70 or above, and this is according to school board policy. 70 or above is passing, so they do have to be passing in order to be placed in the virtual platform. Students who are choosing to move to the virtual platform during this time that are not already in there have to see Jesse or I, and then we just fill out the form for them to go virtual. When they go virtual, we have to contact the teacher, the principal. We have to let Ruth Ann know so she can get everything right in the computer, in the database, and so they can count for that. So if they want to go virtual, they need to see Jesse and I. We have to sign off on that, and then it goes to the school. This is what we're having the problems with right now, but the students are going to have to know, and I think we have many students learning now that they have to complete the daily graded assignments, projects, and exams, because that's where we're finding, that's where the problem is. They have to be actively engaged 5 days to be accountable for their work, which is what it is right now. This is a little bit different. This was not on the plan to return to school, but we want the kids to know that we are reviewing the grades, and we want the parents to know. So they will be reviewed by their teachers on a daily basis. They will be reviewed by central office supervisors, which will be Jesse and myself, at the midterm and at the 9-week grading period. And if they fall below a 70, we're going to send that letter. You've got to come back to school. It's not that we are mad or upset, or they need to learn, and we want them to be successful academically, and that's just not working with some students. If the school system determines that an in-person placement is warranted, that the students are continuing to fail, we send the letter again, which was written right by Mr. McCarty, that they are required to come back to school. If they refuse to do so, then we can do a possible petition for educational neglect. And if students do not improve, the school system does have the right, and they will begin the necessary paperwork for retention, which has already begun with some children.
So we would like to have approval for our, I guess, virtual learning plan for the second semester. We do have to have approval for that if the board will approve that for us.
When you say retention, now what?
That means they don't pass to the next grade level. Because, it's a building block, it's a ladder. You can't skip from first grade to, and go to second grade if you haven't learned what you need to learn in first grade.
That's what I was talking about there a while ago,
Yes.
the lower class.
Yes.
Okay, so we have item here to approve the virtual learning criteria for the second semester. Do we have a motion?
Okay, so this is, goes to page 8, front page to page, halfway through page 8, right? That's what we're
Yes.
approving, right?
Yes, page 6 to page 8.
Okay, that's right. Okay, I make a motion, we approve this. That's great job, everybody. I like it.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, we have a second. Any further discussion? You would call the roll, please.
Mr. Matheson?
Yes.
Mr. Payne?
Yes.
Mr. Carlton?
Yes. All right. Did you want to continue with that? Yeah. Okay.
We would like to continue on and just let you know how our students are doing that's in person. And some of this data does reflect our virtual students that did come in to choose to do the Ames Web assessment. But before that, and this is under the 5-year plan update, one of the goals with the 5-year plan, which is your all's plan, is goals and strategies from the district annual improvement plan will be shared with the Board of Education. And I did send you an attachment, that was attachment 9. I just want to share with you the 3 main goals of the district so everyone can see what our focus is for this year. The first goal being we will improve K-12 literacy. You know, if a student can't read, that's the building block of learning. So that is a goal that we have. The second one is we will increase literacy and math school skills for students with disability by closing the achievement gap between students with disability and general ed students. And then the third is, of course, the focus for secondary, which pre-K all the way up to 12th grade has an impact on ACT, as we will improve ACT performance. So that's the district goals we have. Dr. Long and Ms. Wills are going to share where we're at right now, so parents can see, you know, where our students are. You know, when they share this data, one of the things to realize, we really thought when we got this data back that we would be a lot lower than we were this time last year. And we wasn't. We're about the same place we were this time last year, which is very, I guess, is a positive thing for us. So,
Yeah, before we get too much into this data, we'll start by talking about our benchmark scores. There's some you may have heard us talk about, but probably not a lot lately because COVID sort of knocked that down the importance totem pole a little bit. But this thing we call CER, Comprehensive Educational Resources, it's a consortium among all of the districts in First Tennessee and a few outside of First, Sevier, Jefferson, and Etowah City now. But most of those districts, not all, are using this same case benchmark. That's a vendor name that has real good reliability and alignment and so on and so forth. So let me cut to the chase. There's some reports that I can't share with you formally. They're still somewhat embargoed. The directors, the superintendent, study council still reviewing them and going over them and hashing out some things. But it had how our students performed up against students from 8 or 9 other districts that use this same benchmarking tool. And I can just tell you it was really encouraging. I know that's anecdotal, and I'll give you the numbers as soon as I'm allowed to. But our students did really well up against the other students in Upper East Tennessee. So we were really proud of that. So here's the numbers from our case benchmark. Ms. Wills, you can chime in here. But we just did a district-wide by grade level. So what you've got there, you can see it on your paper. You've got the total that were tested in each grade level. The average percent they got correct, and then the projected percent proficient. You know, the average percent correct, I will remind you that Tennessee's test takers, the students, still haven't completely rebounded to where they were 6-8 years ago under these new standards. So when you see a 50% or a 40 or a 30, we're obviously not satisfied with that, but that's not uncommon, and it's not uncommon among our neighboring districts either.
So what's the difference between the average percent correct and the projected percent proficient?
The percent correct is just if there were 100 problems on the test, then the third graders on average got 39 of them correct.
And what's projected?
That is, they put their statistical analysis to it, and that's what they estimate. That's how many they estimate would be proficient if they took the test now. The
So
state test.
Out of
pretty
the
much
third
double.
graders, 18.7% of the students would be proficient.
That's their projection.
We
Now-
typically do see, though, that this is the very first benchmark that they
Right.
take, and they'll take 2 more. They're going to take one in January, and then they'll take another one in March. And typically, those percentages do
They'll come
increase
up.
throughout the year.
Something comes into play here that I'll talk a little bit more specifically when we get to the high school data that we just call it pacing guides. And so we tried, all 8 or 9 of us, to adopt a common pacing guide. But, you know, we went virtual the first 2 or 3 weeks and wound up starting on August 17th. XYZ district didn't start till after Labor Day, and they started in person. So the pacing guides were kind of not really compatible, and they weren't really compatible for all of our grade levels either. So what that amounts to is, on the day the students took the test, it may have covered these 8 standards, but maybe the teacher had only covered 5 of them. And so this first benchmark, the encouraging data is indeed encouraging. The discouraging data, kind of need to wait till the second and third benchmarks to see, because I think what happens is they do typically catch up.
So average percent correct is kind of like a score, and then the
Yes.
projected percent is like the percent of students?
It's basically saying that if the third grade students took the TCAP assessment today, that probably 18.7 would be proficient and advanced. But again, you know, they're just comparing their statistical analysis with that. There's no guarantee what would happen.
And when we talked to the director of that consortium today, I had a call with her today. She said that across those 19 districts, that anything that was around 30% or above was really, really good. So, I mean, even these 27s, and, you know, we've got a 41 here, so I wouldn't read too much into the first benchmark on that third grade score. I do believe it'll come up. 3 through 8 ELA, or reading, as it's called on there. You can see those trend a little bit higher across the board. And we're seeing that here, and we're seeing it nationally. You heard a lot of people screaming back in the spring that this was going to kill academics for students. That wasn't based on anything other than a guess. And I'm certainly not saying this has been good for students. But the damage that was predicted, the doomsday scenarios, has not played out. It has been almost hard to detect in reading among our scores. Now, we can see it in the math that I just showed you. The math scores have suffered, but not like predicted. The reading scores have held, which is a great, great thing. Any questions on this?
Any theory why? I'm just thinking in my mind, maybe, you know, since these kids are having to use virtual, they're having to read more. Even to do math, even to do science, they're having to do it on their own sometimes.
I think that's as good a theory as any. I was a math teacher. I can't imagine doing it virtually. And a reading teacher may say, well, I can't imagine doing that either. But I was never one of those. So for me, it makes sense. It would be very difficult to teach math virtually, not without some really good tools that were in every household, that you could sort of normalize it, and that's not been the case. Science. Ms. Wills, you got anything to do?
I will say, we did not benchmark science and social studies last year, so we were really excited that we are able to do that. So we really don't have data to compare our science and social studies from last year, but this time next year we will have some good data that we can look back on to kind of gauge our performance and where we're at. But overall, it's pretty consistent with what we typically score on TCAP as far as the average percent correct. So, and there's definitely some bright spots. When you look at that 5th grade and 50% are projected, I mean, that's super high. So just a
Almost
pretty
unheard of.
encouraging data.
50%'s almost unheard of on that first benchmark. Social studies. All of these are formatted the same. Just your 3 through 8, your 4 academic core subjects.
And I will say here, social studies, we will not even test social studies in grades 3 through 5. Only 6 through 8 will test in social studies this year.
And that's
But
per
it is-
state. That's not
Right.
that's not us doing that. There is no social studies test in 3rd, 4th, or 5th.
But we still like having, you know, we wanted our 3 through 5 students to take this assessment so that we have some data on how they're performing.
Very briefly, our goal with this, going back to the CER, is to not just look at Johnson County, but say, you know, and people might, we want people to be looking at us and going, what are you doing in your 5th grade science and social studies? Well, we'll come over here and watch. Here's the tools that we use. You can watch what our teachers do. And if we have to go to Jefferson City to watch one of their teachers to see what they're doing, we'll do that. Or in 2020, we'll jump on a Zoom call, or show a recording. But that's the idea, is to see who's doing what works, and share it. 9-12 math, Algebra II here, you can see, we looked into that specifically when we got these results. And the issue there was, we had an all virtual start for good reason, no complaint, not complaining, just matter of factly, we had an all virtual start. The students came back, they had tried, and then, so the teacher took off with where they would have been when they came back, and quickly realized, I kind of need to start over. And so went back for the betterment of the students and sort of started back at the beginning. So at the time that we tested, they had not covered all that we had expected them to cover, and it showed in the results. I've been in that class and observed it, and they're working and they're learning. So it's just going to be a matter of till the semester runs out, when they run out of time. But, the geometry numbers compared really, really well to some of the others in the area. English 1 and English 2. English 2 was the same story as Algebra 2. It wasn't on pace with where it normally is at this time. They actually are taking their second benchmark now. The window closes tomorrow, and it's the one that covers all of the materials. So we will know more shortly about that. But it was a pacing issue, as was biology. It just wasn't at the point where it normally would have been at the time that they tested. I can tell you, with English 2 and biology, we didn't get to test last spring, but with English 2 and biology and Algebra 2, the numbers on our state test numbers have been much higher than that. So it's sort of, I think my explanation is the correct explanation. I don't think there's great cause for concern there. And U.S. history. U.S. history is trending upward year after year, so it's something we're still working on, but there's that. So that's our AIMSweb. That's our case benchmark data in K through 12, which in 12 we call EOC, which is end of course. Do you have any questions about that? Some of the most encouraging data, Ms. Wills helped me because you understand AIMSweb and all that much better than I do. AIMSweb progress monitoring. What I've got here for you is a side-by-side comparison in red. And that doesn't look as good on your copies. I'm sorry, it looks better on the screen. But in red, you've got last year's, and in the left-hand column, you've got this year's. And you can see, it's what we see is not what we feared we might see.
Right. So if you'll notice, with this percentage, you want it to be lower, because the percentage is the students needing intervention, and so you don't want very many students, needing intervention. But when you look at, for example, at Doe Elementary, this year 45% of the students needed some type of tiered intervention. But when you look at last year, we were at 44%, so only 1% higher. At Laurel, they were a little bit higher at 53%. Last year they were at 44%. But their numbers are so small that one or two kids can kind of skew that percentage. So I would not be that concerned. Mountain City Elementary, it's exactly the same as it was last year. At Rome Creek, actually this year they only had 51%. Last year they had 53%, so that even shows some progress in the number of students needing intervention. And as a district, we were at 44% at this, and last year at this time we were at 43%. So it's, just like Dr. Long mentioned, it's really encouraging news.
Yeah.
When you look at the middle school, go ahead.
It dropped from 23% to 20%.
20, which is
that
great.
needed.
How's our virtual students testing in this?
There were some, but not all virtual students.
They have to come in to test.
Oh, they have to come in, okay.
They do. There's no way to do this assessment without them coming to the school. Some parents were okay with that. We brought them in, tested them one-on-one, and then some parents just did not feel comfortable. So now that does play into this somewhat, but.
Right. Now, we had some of them that did these from home.
Yes.
But this.
Several of them.
But this has to be done in the school.
With the interventionist.
Right. You have to have an adult to administer the test, because anyway.
And this is on paper?
No.
Is this,
No.
it is? Okay.
No, it's not. It's online. And then, so when you look at the math,
Okay. I just turned you back.
You're fine.
Okay, so pretty much the same at Doe Elementary. We're actually 2% lower at 31%. Laurel, a little bit higher, again, at 47%. Mount City was also a little bit higher in math, that is also comparing with what we're seeing with our benchmarks with math, that students are struggling a little bit more with math than they are ELA. Roll Creek was at 49%, which went up about 3%. As a district, we're at 40%. Last year, we were at 36%. The middle school was at 27%. Last year, 25%.
Yeah, it goes back to what I was saying, what she said, math not hardly as holding as well as reading, but the numbers, you know, they didn't explode. They're in the ballpark, so we're thrilled with that. That concludes.
So based on COVID's effect and what you're seeing here, and particularly with your in-school students, are you feeling pretty comparable with where you need to be?
We are. I mean, we're definitely not where we want to be.
Well, we never are, but I
Yeah.
mean, with COVID's effect, you
Right,
feel
but
fairly comfortable that
we
we
are.
haven't taken a total nosedive?
Exactly. We feel really thankful that the teachers, I mean, obviously what they did and the supports that they put in place are working.
Yeah. I would say the same, especially for, I want to be careful how I word this. Let me first say thank you to the teachers, because they work
Yeah.
exceptionally hard and continue to work harder than they probably ever have. And and they've done it with smiles on their faces and no complaining, and they are to be commended. We can't thank them enough. What Angie just said, because of the year-long format, I share that sentiment exactly with the middle school, for my middle school folks. As far as the teacher effort and the student effort, I share that sentiment also with my high school. However, the delayed start to school and then the virtual shutdown in the middle of the semester and some early snows have knocked a dent in their instructional time. Out of anybody's control. I mean, it's no one's fault. We have pushed the test date back till January, which recouped some of it for them. So I was talking to a teacher today, and he said these kids can learn it. He said we're going as hard as we can, and he said it's just a matter of being up against the clock. So
I think we're doing much better than the schools that are still virtual.
I
agree with
Yeah.
that.
I think so.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
All right. Anything else to add? No. All right, next item is simply a discussion on purchasing school buses for the 2021-2022 school year and permission to post for bids. And this is in our regular plan for school buses.
It is.
All right, Dr. Simcox.
I'm going to turn that over to Dr. Long and to Mr. Garver. This is in our regular plan for school buses, so this is just permission to be able to post for bids, but they're going to share the information they have.
First off, Mr. Garver has finalized the spec sheet that he has there and it's presented to you. If you have any questions on that, we'll answer them. Probably defer 100% of those to him, because that is his specialty. I'm going to present to you our situation, though, with buses as far as the ones that are aging out and have to come off. We have, well, let me give you the good news first. In the next 2 years, we're going to need 5 total. So 2 1 year, 3 the next, however which way you all want to do it. That's what we project that we're going to need. So, and I said that first because you might have had a minor heart attack if I said we're getting ready to have 8 age out. We do not need 8. 2 of them are the last buses that Head Start money ever bought. They don't need to be replaced. And so that leaves 2 that are going to age out at the end of this year, and then 4 that are going to age out at the end of 2022. And so that's a total of 6, but we don't need 6, we need 5. 72 passenger full-size bus. We don't need any special needs buses at this time. We bought one of those last year. We're in good shape on those. I spoke to Mr. Robinson today to check that's county funds. And so they put a $165,000 appropriation in there annually, and there's $249,814 in the reserves. So that's a total of $414,814. And I asked him an obvious question. I said, so purchasing 2 one year and 3 another year would seemingly not be a concern. He said, no, it would not seem to be the case. So we're seeking permission. One thing we learned last year was that we needed to start earlier. I think we opened bids on February the 12th.
Yeah.
And it would have been helpful if we had opened them a little sooner. If we don't, we don't, but it would have been helpful. So that's why we're seeking permission to post for bid, and then looking for a decision on if you will, if our long-range plan is to buy 5 over the next 2 years, would you prefer to buy 2 this year and 3 next, or vice versa? That is how they're aging out. They age out 2 this year and 4 the next, but we don't need 4, we just need 3.
But you're sticking with the county's projected plans for school buses, and they're budgeted.
This
How they're
plan was, Mr. Garver sat down with Trooper Wills
Yeah,
and went over the age of the buses, the specifications on them, and they have a sheet of our entire fleet and when they age out, when they've got to come off.
But the county has a long-term projected plan on our buses, and this is, from what I understood you to say, this is within their plan as far as the dollars that they've set aside.
They allocate $165,000 annually.
Right.
Yes, sir. I've not seen a document of a long-term bus plan, but so I may be misunderstanding you.
It's where when the school bus garage blew up, and then they had a decision on how we replace buses. But all you're asking for is just permission to post bids. We're not making any decisions other than just to post the bids, correct?
correct.
We need to state for how many when we post the bid, don't we?
Yeah.
We have to
It'd be
put for
preferred.
2 or for 3,
So we need 2 this year, I'd say 2.
and that's
Right.
fine. That's
Yeah,
perfectly.
that's
Now,
fine.
are we needing 72 passengers all the time now? I mean,
Well, actually, I could use 100 passengers on some routes.
The
Does that make
72, you got a 66 and a 72, and there ain't much, there's very little cost difference between them.
They'll make an 80?
They make a 78 passenger.
Those get, the longer they get, the fewer roads they can go up
Right.
in a county like ours. So we do have some shorter buses because of the winding roads.
are the high school kids, is the population on those buses up there going to the high school?
No, it varies from bus to bus. Some buses have more elementary. I've got one bus that for the last 3 days has never dropped off at elementary because their elementary kids not going. So they just go straight to the high school.
Right.
Have middle school and high school kids that they dropped off for the last 3 days.
And he would about have to refer to previous years
Yeah.
to give you good answers to those. Right now, our bus rider numbers are low. And we have every bus, except for the one out of Shady that goes to Doe, we have every bus goes from whatever elementary school they serve to the high school. That way the students don't change buses. Which in a normal year, that wouldn't be the case.
Of germs. That's why I did that this year.
Good job.
But you guys, in your opinion, we need 2 72 passenger buses.
Yes.
And so get the
And,
bids.
and we had kids every day. We added one today, or yesterday. Another kid on the route, on 2 different buses. So,
And you get an annual of 165,000 per year to buy buses with.
Yes, sir.
Now, if you have money left over from the purchase of these 2 buses, that money be carried over in for the
yeah,
next
yeah,
order?
it'll stay in that account.
At the county level.
Yeah, that comes from the county.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
So I always call Mr. Robinson to get these figures. And the money, actually, we're not even a flow-through on this money, correct, Tina?
Yeah.
They
When,
create the
when
purchase order
when
and they cut
Bluebird-
the check.
Bluebird had to do some corrections. They put a few hundred miles on our new buses. They had to take them back to Nashville a time or two. But when they finally got it, we refused to pay them until they got it right. When they got it right, then we did some signatures and gave the okay to Mr. Robinson, and he cut the checks. So the money came straight from the county.
So we
Did you all
have,
document that?
Oh, yes.
Oh, yes.
We were unhappy at first.
Yeah,
We're happy
very.
now, other than the fact that they put about
So,
2,400 miles on
well,
it.
one has 1,200 on it and one has 1,300. They got inspected and went on the road today. First day.
So they only went to Nashville and back once.
Mm,
I thought they went twice.
I thought they were to
Yeah.
come here and do that work on them.
Not
No,
Bluebird.
they would not do
That was
that.
not,
That's in these specs.
Yeah, they would not come here and do it. They send a driver, they pick the bus up, they take it back.
Yeah.
Brought that bus back, picked up the other bus, took it back.
I remember we talked about that
Yes,
last
we
year.
did.
Yeah, we decided
I've
to
got
go
it
this
wrote in
route.
here, on-site technical support.
Yeah, we actually,
I
In
was
the-
thinking
in
we had
the-
that on that last contract.
We did.
we
and
had
they said
we
that-
had it as a value-added service, and when I conferred with our attorneys, they said you really should not weigh that into your decision on which bid you go with, because you had it listed as a value-added service. So we did not list it as a value-added service this year. We put it on the spec sheet.
Okay,
So last year, we went with the true low bid.
okay.
Right.
It may cost us more in the long run in mileage on our wear and tear on our buses, hopefully not. Most of the problems were minor, but I'll give you an example, and it seems crazy that they couldn't just come here and do this. We had paid for, we had spec'd out and paid, we hadn't paid them yet, but we had agreed to an LED lights package, because the lights are brighter, they last longer, they're safer, because they're brighter. It had regular incandescent bulbs all around it. Well, so that meant it had to go back to Nashville to get new bulbs.
Yeah,
You
they
know?
wouldn't
Just
send-
silly things like
We
that.
wouldn't send the mechanic up here to change the lights,
But,
so.
and we, anyway, so we learned some things in that process, and we believe, and you all, I hope you've had a chance to look over, we believe that we've got a good set of specs here. There's a few other safety features that are standard on Bluebird that may or may not be on Thomason International, I couldn't tell you, but that we believe that if it exists, we ought to have it. For instance, these two buses, even though we didn't ask for it, have a backup camera. Well, if there's such a thing as a backup camera, we ought to have one on it.
Yeah.
These two Bluebirds have backup cameras.
They
Yes,
do.
they said that they were.
They're standard on those
Standard
now.
equipment on theirs now.
But we put it on this spec sheet, regardless of who we buy from, we think we ought to have a backup camera.
Right.
You can't hardly buy a vehicle without one now, so
True.
it's just safer.
So that's in the spec sheet then.
Yep.
Yes, sir. But we'll be glad to answer any questions you may have.
Now, a few years ago, there was problems with younger children when they walked in front of the bus, the driver couldn't see them. How's that being handled now?
Got a crossing arm on the
They
front
cross, or
bumper.
they have to go
They
way
have
out
to go out
seats?
like 5 foot before they can get around the arm to come into the door.
Okay, so that,
Other
is
way.
that
Stop
on here, I
That-
guess?
That
Yeah,
arm goes
on-
out.
Yeah.
Yes,
Stop sign goes out this way, and the crossing arm goes that way, so that when they walk out that door, they've got a walkway in front.
and 99% of the kids,
And we try to let them out to where they don't have to cross back anyway.
they're on the right door side.
Right.
99% of the
Right.
drop-offs is on pickups and drop-offs on the door side.
If we
So
have,
they never have to
Right.
cross in front.
if we have to turn around and come back so they can get out on that side, that's what we do, if at all possible.
Okay,
Don't have them crossing traffic.
so does somebody want to make a motion?
make a motion, you get a bid on 2 buses, according to these specs.
Okay.
I'd like to add one thing now. When these bids come back, they come back straight to the director's office.
Okay.
That's the way the TSBA has
Yeah,
it.
that's where they come the
That-
last
that-
time.
Well,
Yeah,
we
they
did
come
last-
here.
Yeah,
Yeah, they come here.
and then we
We
do a
have
bid
that
of
day we open.
bid open here.
We'd like to try to do
We
one
don't
in
handle,
January.
we don't handle them till they open.
Right, we'll open them in here.
Yeah.
for
And
everybody.
that's in an open meeting, that's.
Yeah.
That's gotta be
Yeah.
announced.
It's gotta be posted.
Yeah.
And it would be nice if we could do this in January,
We'll put it in the paper,
possible.
and we'll put the specs and the who to contact and whatnot and all that, and we'll put the date of the opening and the time, and it'll be in this boardroom.
Okay, yep. That's what my motion is for two
You
of them.
got the motion?
Yeah.
I'll second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Call the roll, please.
Mr. Matheson?
Yes.
Mr. Payne?
Yes.
Mr. Carlton?
Yes.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
All right, the next item is the first reading of TSBA recommended changes on the following policies. First one is physical examinations and immunizations, and the second one is medicine.
Yes, and I did discuss both of these with Ms. Henley. And on the physical exams and immunizations, this is just a state law requires for religious and medical exemptions for immunizations, and we had to put that in the new policy. Under medicines, we've updated this to allow for students to self-administer asthma medications during school hours, and Wendy said we already do that based on the age of the student if it's appropriate.
All right. The next item is the second and final reading of the Johnson County Board of Education changes to the rules of order.
And that was just where we made the change from 2/3 vote to quorum.
I make a motion, we approve that policy 1.405.
We have a motion and a second.
We got a second on that one?
No, I'm not gonna second.
Well, I'll second the motion. All right, any further discussion? Call the roll.
Mr. Matheson?
No.
Mr. Payne?
Yes.
Mr. Carlton?
Yes. Next item is a COVID update.
Yes, you got your daily update today. I sent that to Mr. Sutherland for him to post as well. And Wendy's here. As you can see from the daily update, you know, our active cases, total active cases we have with students and staff as of today is 13. Quarantine is 73. We do have a lot of students coming back tomorrow. By Tuesday, we have a lot of students coming back that will be out of quarantine. Wendy can probably share more with our the rapid testing. She did place that order to be able to utilize for our students and staff that have symptoms. She placed that before Thanksgiving. They told her it would be 3 to 5 days, and she still doesn't have them. She has called them, I think, every day this week. So Wendy, do you want to discuss that?
Sure, I'm just gonna go over a couple of changes they did real quick. I guess last Friday, the CDC and the Department of Health decided to change the guidelines again. So we're going back and forth on that. So now, if someone is, the isolation time is, if you're a case, is still the same, it's 10 days. But now, if you are quarantined because you were around someone that was the case, it is now 10 days and not 14. So that's probably helping us get some back tomorrow that we called back, that we can, about 4 days sooner. Another little change in that too is I'll just give you an example, it's easier to explain because it's kind of difficult. Before, when we quarantined a student in a classroom that sat beside another student who was a case, they were automatically 14 days. Now they have to do 10 unless, if they want to try to test out of that, if they're non-symptomatic, they can come in and we can do our rapid on day 6. It can't be before day 6. And if they're negative, we can let them come back to school on day 8. So that shortens it even a little bit further. But day 8 is the absolute minimum, and they can't be symptomatic at all during that entire period. And like she said, I did order those kits. I ordered 650 kits. They said that they have shipped. They are on their way, but we do not have them. I was hoping to have them before Christmas break. And we will be testing
all symptomatic students and staff, and probably unsymptomatic critical infrastructure employees. That way, we can kind of get them out. And it's supposed to be a 48-hour turnaround on, if someone does test negative on the rapid, we can do what's called an Everlywell test. It's still a rapid test, but we can only do it on 18 years and above, which would help our staff and some high school kids. We can, if they test negative, we can go ahead and swab them again and send that same day UPS and get the results within 48 hours. If a
And the rapid
student,
is, how fast is turnaround on the rapid test that you're buying?
it's 15 minutes.
15 minutes, okay.
Unfortunately, we can't do the Everlywell on anyone 18 and younger. They are considering loaded to 16, but we don't have guidance on that. If we get a negative rapid on a student who's symptomatic, they have to go to the health department and get the PCR test, and we will have to wait for results on it. But overall, I think it'll speed up the process, hopefully, of getting those out that need to go out, and shorten till we have to quarantine, and get everybody back as soon as we can.
Have the health departments in Tennessee talked at all about the vaccine being available to, for instance, teachers, nurses?
Dr. Kursky on our conference call Wednesday talked about it a little bit. We can register up to December 15th for those that are frontline that want to take it. I don't know how many's going to take it yet. They're not offering it to teachers, I don't think yet. It's just the school nurses, the frontline. So he said they were still doing some research on it, but most of the health department was probably going to take it to kind of set an example. But we'll just have to kind of wait and see on that. And it's going to be the Moderna synthetic vaccine that will be offered to us, because Pfizer is going to be the ones that are going to the hospitals and nursing homes.
Well, the problem with Pfizer is being able to refrigerate it at the sub-zero temperatures, but that's good. So they are because from my understanding, Tennessee was one of the first in the group of states to be able to get the vaccines. Has he talked about that at all?
He didn't talk about that a lot on the call that we had.
Because I know Virginia has started with the health departments with different groups, trying to identify and where you would store it. And I just wondered what Tennessee had done as far as the school system. They haven't reached out as far as...
Just kind of gave pretty much like an application for who wanted it. You got to kind of reserve your vaccine if you were interested on the first go round. That's about all they did.
Okay.
Did it get approved today? FDA approve it? Is it today or tomorrow they're supposed to look at that?
They done one of them today.
Did it approve? Okay.
I don't know whether they approved it or not, but they're supposed to do it today.
I didn't hear the results.
Anything else on COVID?
No.
All right. Budget update, Ms. Lipford.
Okay. You have in front of you the November 2020 budget report. I'll just hit a couple highlights on that. The school department at the end of November was 37.7% revenue received and 36.18% of appropriations expended in the general purpose school funds. Sales tax collections received in November, but which is for the month of October, were $184,471. Collections were up $5,022 from the prior month and $31,565 from the same month in the prior year. And property tax collections received in November were $368,550. Collections were up $113,283 from the prior month and up $77,031 from the same month in the prior year. And just remember, these numbers are before the split occurs. And then in your packet, you had information, the summary of audit findings from our auditors. They have just released the audit information. If you'll notice, there were 4 findings mentioned by the auditors, but Johnson County Schools was only mentioned in one of those 4. And also combined with us in that 4 were the Office of County Mayor, the Road Superintendent, and the Director of Accounts and Budgets.
Just a couple examples of what they found. They selected a sample of 36 disbursements totaling $204,538. And this was from approximately 7,544 vendor checks totaling $23,655,977. Due to some questions from prior years, they looked at an additional 11 disbursements totaling $25,203. A couple things that they mentioned was that all bookkeepers need to be very careful about the coding. That's something they're really focusing on. Say that we tend to do workers' comp out of 299, and that's what we've done in the past, but they no longer want it there because 513 is the actual workers' comp account, and that's where they want it. So they want to make sure that the coding falls exactly where it should. Like vehicle parts should be under vehicle parts, not other charges. Oil should be under the oil, because most line items are available for construction equipment, different automotive type things. So there's a lot of line items available and they want them used. That was one of the things. Central accounting in the past, or the cafeteria central accounting. In the past, they had just had Ms. McCulloch and Dr. Simcox sign off on the purchase orders for the cafeteria central accounting. And now they also want Mr. Robinson's signature included because he is a director of accounts and budgets. So now those purchase orders are signed by Ms. McCulloch, Dr. Simcox, and then they go on to Mr. Robinson's office. Also in the past, those had been handwritten or hand numbered. Now those are completed in their office, but they come down to our office for us to key them before they go out for signatures. So there was a couple things with the central cafeteria that he wanted to look at differently. There were a couple problems with purchase orders, maybe a couple of instances or some instances where some items were purchased, but a purchase order had not been requested yet, or there might not have been a requisition that was issued. They may have just come and said, give me a purchase order. All in all, it is much, much better than prior years.
Yes, we were very pleased with our audit this year.
We don't want to have any findings.
No, we don't, but.
But these are small findings, things that, we're very careful to watch for, but there might be an instance where they do need a fogger and they have to go get a fogger and then bring us the receipt back or bring us the best garage, so.
Why do you cut the purchase order before the requisition is cut?
The instances I think that they found is we didn't have a requisition, like the receipt would just show up. And also what we have to consider is this was prior year and we were just putting into place some of the things. I will brag on the bus garage. They have done so much better. Like they're doing really, really well with their purchase orders, their requisitions. But there were a few instances where a purchase was made and then a receipt would be brought and we didn't have a requisition. Like Ms. Warren and I, we are very careful to make sure that we get requisitions, but there were a few cases where that just kind of slipped through, where just a receipt was brought and then the purchase order, which is the fact that you did it before asking for permission. Mm-hmm. So.
Can we keep a closer tab on that?
We absolutely can. And something, even Mr. Robinson is like, he's also checking dates to make sure that a receipt wasn't for the date. Mm-hmm. So we've got a couple sets of eyes checking on that, not just coming through us. And, he'll have a question, why was this purchased before the purchase order was printed, or, so there are other eyes that's checking that.
Now, of your items, are there any large items, or are these like a small part or something similar to that?
They don't really say, because this year, rather than giving us our own findings, they lumped us with the county. So in the amounts they've given, there are no large amounts, and the only numbers they've even mentioned was like $131 or so we don't actually know amounts. The amounts that I have saw, because I have saw one or two, they were very, very small amounts. Like, you know, somebody may have just ran out and grabbed something that they needed, and March through May, I mean, that happened a couple times, you know. It's like, we've got to have this, and so.
So now, let's say a maintenance guy is working on something. Let's just say they need a drill bit or a few nails or screws. What's the process?
Well,
I mean,
the way they're dealing with that now is they get with their bookkeeper, Miss Mullins, and they have a purchase order set up for that morning. So like, say, this is the job that I'm gonna do, and they can correct me if I'm wrong, but they might say, okay, this is the job we're gonna be doing today. We feel that we're gonna need some things at American Hardware. Could you go ahead and give us an American Hardware purchase order for whatever, you know, amount? And then during the day, they can go to American Hardware, they can pick up the item, and then they bring the receipts back to Miss Mullins. In the past, what they had did was they just did an open PO to American Hardware for the entire month.
Mm-hmm.
But now they're dealing with it day by day. Every morning, they get those PO numbers set up with vendors or whatever, and then at the end of the day, they give the receipts back. Isn't that?
There are no open POs.
Yes, so,
No open PO. And if they didn't think they were gonna need parts, and they get out on the job and realize they do, then they call Lisa.
yes.
And she pulls the PO and tells them that it's been pulled, then they go to the hardware store.
So they've made some big changes up there, and they did really, really good with that.
Okay, they don't, say you open it up to American Hardware.
Mhm.
You don't add any other vendor to that American Hardware purchase order?
No, sir.
Okay.
Yes. They have to ask specifically, like they would say, I might need $50 at American Hardware, and they fill out requisition forms. They're filling those out. So they would give a requisition for $50 for American Hardware. They have to do an additional requisition form, set up an additional purchase order, say if they want to go to Johnson County Builder Supply.
Okay.
All right, any other questions? Keep on them, Tina.
She does a great job.
All right. Director's report.
Yes, I do want to mention a grant that we got with Skyline. It's called the Student Connect Grant Program. Skyline is very good to Johnson County schools, but one of the things that they have come to us about is they want to help our students that are in the Skyline districts, which include Shady and downtown Mountain City. When we got to looking at downtown Mountain City, though, it's pretty much the business section, so it doesn't impact any of our students. They're going to be giving 15 internet accesses. Dr. Long's actually working on that because he does know a lot of families from Shady. I know Mr. Matheson has gave him some names, and he's going to be doing some more calls, but it'll be able to give internet connectivity to 15 families that do not have it. So we appreciate that with Skyline.
It's also going to be available a little later on down in the Southern community.
Yes, it is going to be available in the Southern community.
Of course, Virginia would have to supply the
The device,
devices for
yeah, because they're not our students, but we will supply the devices for our students for those. And then just U-Trust Appreciation Day is coming up for our food service on January the 7th. They do a great job. They had the Thanksgiving meal or Christmas meal today. I was out of town in Greenville, but I heard that it was very, very good. They do a great job. First semester does end Monday, January the 11th, and we will have our Christmas holiday coming up next Friday. Will be a half day. We will be doing a second harvest food bank distribution at the high school next Friday from 1 to 2:30. Those have been so successful, and we have enjoyed being able to give out food to our community. And then just on behalf of myself and my boys, I want to say Merry Christmas to everyone, and I hope everyone has a happy holiday and a happy New Year.
All right. The new house. If you would just talk just briefly, Herbie, about the progress on your new house.
We got a good report at this time, and we'll lay them block out for Christmas.
All right.
My goal, I don't know that it'll happen, I'd like to have it under roof before the end of the school year. We'll see what happens with our students.
What about your road up there? Last time we looked, they were still in progress.
The job corps pulled out with COVID. They're hoping to be back in January. But I think the road is pretty much complete, so when they come back, hopefully we can send them to Miss Long to start on the football field.
Okay.
My goal for the road is to put out bids probably March, April, when they start paving again, and get that road paved.
And what are they gonna do at the football field?
It's been the plans for a couple of years to build a field at Rome
For
Creek.
youth league.
Oh, Rome Creek.
Yeah, Rome Creek for youth league.
I wondered how Miss Long got Rome Creek, or Dr. excuse me, got football field. Thought Leon might not know something here. I saw him squirm just a little bit. All right. Thank you for that report there. All right. Any other things, Mr. Matheson? Do you have anything to add?
Just want to wish everyone a Merry Christmas, and especially want to thank all the teachers and you administrators too. I know you're putting in so much extra time, and just want to thank you and have a Merry Christmas. That's it.
And I want to wish everybody Merry Christmas too, and thank you for all the work you've done. I think your scores show the hard effort and the hard effort that our medical staff and our staff have done as far as keeping COVID down as far as the school system goes. You know, when you look around, we're one of the few systems that has been in school other than the first 2 weeks and stayed in school and had full services. And from what I hear from other people and from the folks in, right across the line of Virginia, is that they're very envious of Johnson County for being able to be in school and not have to do full virtual. So, and I think all that credit goes to all y'all. You've done a great job. Have a good Christmas. Do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion, we adjourn.
All right, we're adjourned.
All right.